We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Monday. We're starting a new week. The lawsuit with Letitia James against Donald Trump, his company, and his family starts back up again today. The defense takes to the floor, and Don Jr. is their first witness. He's the leadoff guy. Give you some indication of how things are going for Trump's team. Anyway, as you can tell, I still have this cold. I don't really feel that sick. I do get tired because of the medications I'm on and such. My voice can come and go. So I have no clue how this will go. I have nobody with me today. By the way, I want to thank my guest from yesterday. He did a great job. He talked a lot and it worked perfectly for me. He will be back. There is no question about that. Um, I wanted to talk about a couple of things before we get into it. We got a bunch of emails too. On Saturday night, I just want to bring you up to date. You remember I told you the story that I got a DM from Tyler Henry's mom, the psychic, the Hollywood medium, and she invited me and my wife to the show on Saturday. And I wasn't sure if it was her. Uh, so we FaceTime, and I found out it was her. Perfectly lovely woman, and uh, she was a fan of Rational Boomer, I guess, and that's quite an honor. Anyway, my wife and I went to the show, and it was fabulous. It was a great show. If you've seen Tyler Henry, whether you believe in psychics or not, the kid's very endearing. He's an adorable kid, and he's very likable. And frankly, some of the things I've seen him do are pretty impressive, especially what I saw last night. Now, you have to understand this. I come from a different perspective when it comes to psychics. I've always been interested in psychics. And back in the day, 15, maybe 20 years ago, when the idea of podcasts came out, I was working doing traffic and I needed a creative outlet. So I created some podcasts. This was before podcasts were mainstream. And I wanted to do some things that interest me. And one of the shows I did was with psychics. And I met a lot of psychics. And I'm a believer that there are people that have those abilities. But I also believe, so I believe in the concept, but I also believe there are some people that claim to be psychics that aren't really psychics. They're kind of playing the game. And I've talked to a lot of psychics in my life, interviewed them for this show. And I can always tell who was a fake psychic and who was a real psychic because the questions I asked. And I told them up front, I said, I'm a naturally curious guy. I want to believe in this stuff, but I ask a lot of questions. So you're going to have to deal with that. And so I had some that were perfectly happy to answer my questions, and they seemed to be the ones that were more likely to be real. But there were other ones when I would ask the questions, they would take offense to it. They say, are you testing me? I said, well, yeah, I guess I am. Is that a problem? And then they would get indignant and walk out or say some shit or whatever. So while I believe in psychics, I'm have a healthy. I'm skeptical of many of the people in it. Not the concept, not the gift, as it were, but some of the people that claim to have it. I also feel like I can read people pretty well too, just by looking at them, just by talking. And everything I've seen with Tyler on TV, I haven't seen him in person till Saturday night. Excuse me, I'm going to do that a lot. Um, tells me this kid's real. Okay. Now, it was funny because after I saw the show, his mom invited my wife and I up on the stage behind the curtain to meet her and his assistant Heather. Uh, and it was very nice and all of that. But my wife was losing her shit. She's a big fan of all these people. And it was kind of emotional for her, believe it or not. But we had a good time. We went up and we we said hello and took a picture and all that stuff, and it was wonderful. And I'm very happy for my wife because it was an incredibly big deal for her. Not that it wasn't for me, but I don't really get taken in by celebrities. I've talked to a lot in my life, and I realize they're just like us. So anyway, um, afterwards, I texted Teresa, Tyler's mom, and I said, "Listen, I'd like to do something about on TikTok about our interaction and how this all worked out and the show and all that. But I realize I'm kind of a polarizing guy. There's some people that like me and some people that don't like me, and I don't want to fuck up Tyler's business by suggesting the connection between us." And you know what she did? She came back and she said, "Well, you should say whatever you feel comfortable with saying, but you should be careful because Tyler's not everybody's cup of tea." I said, "Well, Teresa, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm not really worried about anybody thinking something different about me because I mentioned this." Um, I thought it was funny that she's trying to protect me, and I was really thinking about Tyler. But then I got thinking about Tyler. Tyler is a medium, a psychic. He also happens to be gay. I'm just thinking he probably doesn't have any Tremblefuck fans, so maybe it's not a big deal. But nonetheless, I put it out there, and I knew it was coming. And I even mentioned something in the TikTok. If you're put off by me talking about this psychic stuff, you do you, I'll do me. Fuck you, I don't care. And I got a couple of people saying, "Oh, I don't believe that shit." Well, good for you. I don't believe in a lot of things that are going in mainstream religions right now. Like I happen to be against pedophilia, but apparently some religions aren't. So I did get a few people mad at me because I was talking about psychics, and and I remind them. I said the part of the reason I do the Rational Boomer podcast is because all my life in radio, I've always had people say, "You can say this, you can't say that." Nobody can do that anymore, including listeners that might be butthurt because I talk about psychics. If you don't believe in them, cool. I don't fucking care. I'm just telling you about my experience. So we had a great time, and I thank Teresa, Tyler's mom, Tyler himself, and Tyler's assistant Heather. They were all wonderful people. Actually, I didn't get to meet Tyler after the show, but of course I saw the show. Great time. I appreciate that she reached out to me and was so generous with offering for my wife and I to come out. And it was a huge deal for my wife. And if for no other reason, it was worth that. I wanted to bring up one other thing before we get into the emails. I went and saw my granddaughter yesterday, and it's interesting. I learned a couple lessons yesterday. My wife and I were meeting at my son's place, and my granddaughter was there. We're going to pick up some food and maybe just have sandwiches or whatever for dinner, just to see the little girl and have some fun and then go home. So anyway, I get there first and I knock on the door, and you got to understand, my granddaughter and I get along really well. We're hugging and kissing all the time. But my son opens up the door, and I look at my granddaughter and I said, "Well, how are you, young lady?" And she looks at me truly pissed off and she goes, "I'm not a young lady." I said, "Okay, cool. How you doing, cutie?" "I'm not a young lady." And like a lot of experiences I have with women, once you say the wrong thing, it's hard to pull them back. So I'm there, and um, I walk in, and now she's angry with me because I called her a young lady. Don't get it. And my son's upset. "Ah, don't be rude to your grandpa. You love your grandpa. He loves you," and all that stuff. And he's concerned that I'm hurt by this, which I'm not. I said to my son, look, man, I've been married 40 years. I can't count how many times I've said the wrong thing to a woman and not realized what I said. I mean, that's just me. So anyway, we go in and she's kind of playing this little game. And I know with her, it's just a matter of you let her be for a little bit and she works her way out of it. Anyway, we're sitting there and my son says, maybe you and grandpa should play a game. I go, I'll play a game. I'm all for games. Let's play a game. And she's there kind of holding strong to this attitude until she slowly moves her head toward me and says, you want to play a game? I go, heck yeah, I want to play a game. Hide and seek. I'm in. Let's do it. And now she's starting to warm up. But just at that time, my wife comes in the door and she immediately drops everything, forgets about me and goes, Grandma. And she's running and screaming and jumping on her and saying, I miss you and I love you and all that stuff. It didn't hurt my feelings. I get that kind of reaction from women all of my life. And my granddaughter's going to be that from time to time. I've never raised a girl, so I don't really know what to expect. But the happy news is, as the night went on, my granddaughter and I were back to the goofing around stuff and kidding around. But I'll just give, if you're a grandparent or a new parent and you got a toddler girl, let me give you one tip. I'm a sarcastic guy and I kid with people. Don't do that with a 3-year-old girl because they don't realize you're sarcastic and they don't realize you're kidding. They just get pissed. I've done that a couple of times and that didn't work out well for me. So anyway, let's as long as my voice holds out, let's get to the emails. Oh, there's one other bit of news I want to let you know of. It happened late last night, maybe an hour or two before I started recording this podcast. You remember we had the GOP debate last week. It was the third one. And it was just as dull and stupid as the first two. Nothing came out of it. It was a shit show. None of these candidates had any opportunity to be president. It's just not going to happen for them. But you may remember I kind of made sport of Tim Scott. He is a senator from South Carolina. He is an African-American gentleman. He's goofy. He's awkward. He's weird. And you might remember that he was getting shit from his own party because he was 57 years old and not yet married. Oh, what could that mean? Democrats don't care, but the Republicans care. So what does Tim Scott do? He shows up at the debate, this last debate, and he's got his girlfriend on his arm. Now, here's the thing. I don't really know who this woman is, other than she's a very attractive, maybe 40-ish woman, maybe a little older than that. She's accomplished. She has her own business and all that stuff. And I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, she is not dating Tim Scott. And it has nothing to do with Tim Scott's sexuality. There's no way this perfectly lovely woman with all these things going for her would date this fucking goofball. Apparently, nobody bought it. Or maybe she broke up with him after the debate. I don't know what happened because last night, Tim Scott dropped out of the race. He didn't feel like he was getting enough support, so he had to drop out. Really, bitch? You just figured that out? You haven't had support from day one. So he's dropped out, and apparently the rest of the candidates will split up his 4 votes and won't do anybody any good. All right, let's get to some emails. We've got Old Soul, always a favorite amongst our listeners. Hey, boomers. So I tried watching the Republicans debate and had to turn it off when they started talking about Israel and the anti-Semitism on college campuses. They clutched their pearls so tight, I'm surprised they didn't pass out from asphyxiation. They went on and on about how there's no place for hate in this country and no one in this country should feel afraid and unsafe. Well, they got me thinking about Maddie. Where is this outrage and pearl clutching when it comes to our LGBTQ community? Republicans write laws, stand in front of crowds giving hate speeches, and use their platforms to endanger the lives of our LGBTQ plus community. DeSantis has made his state so unsafe. Canada has a travel advisory for their LGBTQ plus citizens traveling to Florida. Nikki Haley has actually been promoting the idea that transgender women are somehow linked to thoughts of suicide in young girls. How disgusting is that? And Haley is supposed to be the sane one. The Republican Party puts targets on the backs of our LGBTQ plus community, then sit back silently as the community gets death threats, run out of their homes, and live in fear. I turned it off at that point because there wasn't a serious person on that stage. They don't deserve my time, energy, and attention. They are all tea-rump, just in different packages. Not one of them could ever walk a mile in Maddie's shoes. Maddie has more morality, courage, strength, and intelligence in her pinky fingers than they could ever dream of. The Republican Party ship is sinking, and they are too far into the ignorant ideology to get on a lifeboat. As a country, we've repeatedly offered them chances, but they refuse to embrace anything other than some warped 1940s Stepford Wives imaginary fairy tale. We can't afford to keep trying to drag them forward with us at this point. They're dead weight, and in 2024, we have to cut the cord of the Republican baggage. People like Maddie makes our country diverse with different perspectives and ideas. She's part of what makes this country great. If Republicans don't want to embrace democracy and be a part of our melting pot of diversities, then bye, Felicia. Boomer, I enjoyed listening to the podcast with Maddie. She is smart and had many gems in her opinions, like Rome wasn't built in a day. I completely agree. We become comfortable thinking change happens without work, but we've got to put forth the effort. Maddie was spot on. I look forward to the next podcast where she's a guest. Thanks for all you do, Old Soul. Thank you, Old Soul. And I concur with all the things you said. It was a pleasure having Maddie on, and she's the epitome of why I put listeners on. A different perspective, a different insight. And she certainly brought that to the show, as Old Soul and the rest of the listeners do too. So thank you, Old Soul. And I agree with you completely. I might go in more in depth, but talking's a problem for me today. Not that bad, but I don't really feel ill. I just have this throat issue. All right. The next one comes from Javier. Hey, Boomer, Javier. I heard an email of yours on the podcast about minimum wages. You made excellent points. On the other hand, Washington and everyone below never mentioned Social Security recipients. Many of these people are receiving much less than minimum wages. What are your thoughts? We get a cost of living increase, but Medicare also increases. Woo-hoo. When I was on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, I was paying zilch. Your thoughts? How can we work 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet if we can barely make it through through doctor's appointments? Javier. Well, there's really only one answer to this. Every other country anywhere near us has free health care. Health care should be a right. And as long as Republicans have a say in it, it never will be. And it's not even that it's not free, it's become unaffordable. This is a crime against the people of this country. And unfortunately, the only way to deal with this situation is to eradicate the riffraff or Republicans. And hopefully we're in the process of doing that. I mean, the Republicans always said what they said, but did what they did, but they always kept it on the DL. So a lot of people that were less informed didn't know any better. They bought what they were told by the Republicans. That's not the case anymore. The information and evidence is coming to light. Everybody has an opportunity to see it. That's not to suggest there aren't some Republicans that, will never get it, but hopefully more of the independents and conservatives will get it, and we will get some changes. But that's what it's going to take. It's going to take 2024 shifting power completely, and then having a president, Joe Biden, progressive enough to get some things done, because you never know what's going to happen in 2028. I mean, I have a feeling that the Republicans are going to have trouble in 2028, but why risk it? Why do what we did with Roe v. Wade? We got that deal set. We could have codified it a number of times, but we didn't. Nah, it'll be all right. Or we got better things to do. Hopefully, we learned a lesson in that situation. If we get the opportunity, and I think we will in 2024, it's time to take action. Take as much action as we possibly can. Joe Biden could get a lot of things done, be more progressive than what he truly is, and he could walk away with a legacy probably greater than any other president. Hopefully, he has the insight to understand that and the willingness to do it. Thank you, Javier. Next one comes from Allison in Vegas. Hello, Boomer Mike. It's Allison in Vegas. I listened to your podcast driving home, and you had opinions on polls that occur. I attached a text message screenshot of these polls I get 2 to 3 times a week. Either I delete them or pretend to be Republican. Polls are BS, and the truth occurs in a booth on election day. Love your podcast and TikTok content. Regards, Allison in Vegas. I just want to say something too to Allison and Old Soul, because Old Soul's in Vegas too. I'm going to be in Vegas. And I don't normally go to Vegas, but my brother and I think my wife and my nephew are going to Vegas, maybe to go to the Vikings game, maybe just go to Circa and watch it on the big screen. I don't know. I want to see the Sphere and all that stuff. We're only going to be there a couple of days, but it'd be nice to bump into you folks. Anyway, yeah, the polls are bullshit. We don't know where they come from. We don't know if they're legit. Still, the media throws them out there as if it's directly from God. You're absolutely right. Polls are polls, but when it comes down to it, it's the elections that count. And when the elections are contrary to what the polls say, you can only presume that the polls are bullshit and you can believe the elections. All right. The next one. All right, Boomer. First, thank you for having me on your show. I believe what you offer as a platform is one of a kind. I enjoyed the conversation as I do with your guests. They give me faith that the cult hasn't destroyed sanity in this country. I wanted to clarify the book I referenced. I called The Fifth Estate. It was actually The Fifth Risk, authored by Michael Lewis, a great read. Respectfully, Lee. And as I said earlier, Lee did a great job on the show. It was his first time on the show, and I couldn't thank him enough. He's very articulate. He's a good talker, and he can keep talking like I can. And I needed him to pick up the slack, and he sure the hell did. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. I told him, as I tell all the listeners, you're always welcome. All you have to do is send an email to rationalboomer@gmail.com, and we'll get you set up. Actually, I extended an invitation on TikTok. One of my peers or followers on TikTok came to me. She's a woman, maybe my age. She told me about this creator. His name is Jeff_HVAC_69. She said, this guy is an absolute asshole Trump bumper. He thinks of himself as a debater, and why don't you go get him? Now, normally I wouldn't do that, but I went and listened to his stuff. And what I was struck by, he doesn't debate anybody. He stitches some news story and then he talks shit about it, but he has no substance. He doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's one of these guys, thinks he's an alpha guy. So I did a TikTok, put his ugly MAGA face in the background. I said, listen, you consider yourself a great debater. And in one of the catch lines that he has is taking down liberals one at a time. That sounds like a challenge to me. Now, he doesn't have a lot of followers and he's not really good at what he does, but I did the TikTok and I said, listen, Jeff, if you consider yourself a debater, you're an alpha guy and you're taking liberals down. Well, I'm a liberal. And like Doc Holliday said, I'll be your huckleberry. And all you have to do is reach out to me at rationalboomer@gmail.com. Say you want to come on the show, and I'll do it at your convenience anytime you want. And we'll just have a conversation. We'll see how you do. And a lot of people were excited about that at that prospect because, here's a guy that does need to be taken down a bit because he's a loudmouth with really no knowledge of what he's talking about. I will just say this. I hope he does contact me, but I did that this morning. Haven't heard a word. Not surprised because Trump-la-fucks are gutless motherfuckers. All right. I have another email from Gordon. Good morning, Boomer. Thanks for reading my email the other day. I wanted to explain that when I visit my son in Duluth for Christmas, I was thinking my wife and I can drive to the cities or meet halfway between the two. I'll keep in touch with you. Love your stuff, Gordon. Yeah, I'm always open to meeting with somebody if it makes sense, whether I happen to be in a place where they are or if you come to town here and we can set it up. I've done it before and I'm happy to do it. So yeah, keep in touch and I will tell you this. I think my wife and I are leaving Minneapolis to drive down to Georgia like on the 28th or 29th, and we'll be gone for a couple weeks. But other than that, we can probably work something out. All right, the next email. Dear Boomer, I was listening to one of your TikToks on Judge Cannon. That woman is so beyond competent, it's ridiculous. I think he meant incompetent. She is causing delays but refusing to release the May trial date until March, and we will all know she's going to give Diaper Don his wish to delay until probably 2025. But she knows there are other cases chomping at the bit for a pre-election trial, and she is determined not to let it go until it's too late for Fani Willis to get it. But frankly, I'm certain she will use her power to fuck up the case anyway by not allowing evidence or claiming a mistrial or fucking up the jury selection process. So we need to concentrate on the January 6th case, and then it won't matter. Let's face it. It's what he's got, maybe 10 or at the most 20 years of life left. If he gets the equivalent of a life sentence for that, nothing can do will make a difference. I agree. I will say this, though. If you think Jack Smith is going to let her run roughshod and get away with everything, I think you're mistaken. I think he knew exactly what to expect. I think he's waiting to give her enough rope to hang herself. She will have to deal with Jack Smith, and I would not be surprised if in the next few months she's no longer the judge on the case. I wouldn't fuck with Jack Smith. Jack Smith knows what's up, knows what she's doing, and he's just kind of biding his time until he can pull the rug out from underneath her. I'm just saying. The emailer goes on, I only hope he's not allowed to stay out while he appeals. As I was watching Glenn Kirshner, and he was saying that these judges who are appointed by presidents are assessed by the Bar Commission, who rates them very competent or not competent to be a judge. And in the past, presidents have listed to all of them on this point. That was until Trump and Mitch McConnell. They totally disregard these assessments And as a result, there are now quite a few judges in lifetime positions who are not competent or impartial enough to be judges. Glenn Kirshner said before Trump he had never thought to ask who appointed a judge. But now he and a lot of lawyers do because of the high proportion of incompetent judges given lifetime appointments by Trump and sanctioned by the Republican Party. It is a terrible state of affairs that an idiot like Diaper Don can give lifetime appointments to incompetent and unsuitable judges. It totally degrades the integrity of the judicial system. But then that was the point, wasn't it? I hope that after this election, they will find a solution to this problem. Anyway, you sounded worse today. Hey, thanks for noticing. Drink lots of honey and lemon and get well soon. Angela the Brit. Excuse me. I have been drinking honey and lemon and taking medications and all kinds of stuff. Like I say, I don't really feel sick. I've got a little congestion and my throat is scratchy, as you can tell. But I'm 63 years old, been here, done that. I'll be fine. All right, next email comes from Mike. Hey, Mike, I have been a faithful listener for the past 2 years. Thank you for this podcast. I'm a Delaware guy and a big supporter of President Biden who lives nearby. I actually worked on his first campaign for the Senate way back in 72. His brother Frank was one grade ahead of me, but I digress. I write to you today to get your take on the present governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. What do you think of him? You mentioned others, Jeffries, Newsom, but I think this guy has a lot to offer. Mike, I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about Wes Moore. I remember when he got elected, and he is a very sharp man. I don't know enough about him to say whether he'd be a good president, but I can say this, he'd be better than any fucking Republican president. Now, he seemed like a very sharp guy, and I'll do some research on him. I should know more about him, and I don't. I can picture him in my mind, and he has a tough job with Maryland. So if he's doing a good job now as the governor of Maryland, I think he probably might be a prospect for the presidency at some point down the line. Certainly not till 2028 or so. But we'll see. I'll look into it, I promise. And then we will go from there. All right. I've got some more emails. We'll talk about some other stuff. But we'll take a quick break and we will be back right after this. All right, we continue on with more emails. When I have guests on, I have to catch up on a lot of emails, but it just so happens I like reading the emails, and I know a lot of you like hearing the emails as well. And as I've said before, I think the listeners offer as much to this show as I do or anybody does. So I'm appreciative of the interaction. Next email goes like this. Hey, Mike, it's OTR Russell coming at you from the road. Tonight it's North Little Rock, Arkansas. I had a thought and wanted your views. I know you don't like to comment on the Israel-Hamas conflict too much because, like myself, you aren't completely up on the history/dynamics. But I believe that the Palestinian people should have risen up and expelled Hamas from their country before they launched the October 7th assault on Israel. Now, I realize that many Palestinians would have died fighting Hamas, but many are dying now anyway. The people of Palestine vastly outnumber Hamas, so it seems that they had the ability to take Hamas. Even if it would have been costly. Many people are saying Hamas is not the Palestinian people, but it seems that their interest, the destruction of Israel and the extermination of the Jewish people coincide. It's not too late either. If Palestine is not Hamas and vice versa, then they should work with Israel in ridding themselves of Hamas. and any other terrorist organization operating there. Again, I don't know much about this, and there is no winning if you wade into this and you're a big dumb white guy sitting in your fucking living room. Palestinians may outnumber Hamas, but are they equipped as well as this terrorist organization? This is a situation that's going to be hard to ever fix because both sides want to do away with each other. It's not an optimal situation for what I know about it, and it's limited. I'd like to say, well, here's an answer. There is no answer. They've been trying to find that answer for 70 plus years, if not more. I agree that Hamas should not have been the controlling group for the Palestinians. I don't know if the Palestinians had a choice or if there's anything they could have done about it. But if Hamas was not in this situation, it would be better. I'm not saying it'd be good, but it would be better than what we have now. Again, it's one of those things you got to take a bit at a time. You got to take out the problem like we have to take out the Republicans. Hamas has to be taken out of the equation. And then we've got to hope against hope that what's left, the two can actually negotiate and work out something that's amenable to both sides. But I'm not convinced that can be done because we've seen them try numbers of times and it hasn't been done as of yet. Now, he goes on to say other Middle Eastern countries should take notice and rid themselves of terrorist organizations operating inside their borders, as well as Lebanon, Hezbollah, for example. But they won't, because just like the people of Gaza, they actually do support these terror groups. Anyway, just my 2 cents. Probably not worth half that. LOL. Thanks, OTR Russell. Well, thank you, Russell. I wish I could add something to that, but I can't. I don't know shit from shit. All right, next one. Hi, Mike. I just saw on CNN that Sean Patrick Krillo from Georgia got arrested for threatening to kill Marjorie Taylor Greene. So far, I haven't seen anything reporting on his party affiliation, but what do you want to bet he's a Trump-a-fuck? Luckily, he was apprehended quickly. I can't see a rational person doing this. Yeah, I don't see a Democrat doing this. And Margie girl is pissing off some Trump-a-fucks. So that would be my guess. Anybody who's going to make a threat like that and grab a gun and do whatever. See, the thing is, I don't understand. I don't know how serious he was. He's just trying to play the bully and talk shit. I don't know how many people that want to assassinate a politician make a call and say, hey, you better watch out. I'm going to kill you. I think he's just a fucking goofball. But with Marjorie Taylor Greene, she can be sad and scared and all this stuff. And I'm not going to suggest that whatever she did, she would deserve something like this. But what she has to address, what the Republicans have to address, they created this culture in this country, this adversarial, violent culture that has been cultivated by the Republican Party. And all I got to say is you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He goes on to say, with Joe Manchin leaving the Senate, it does alleviate one headache. He was a pain in the ass because he had to be more conservative. He held up progress that could have been made during Biden's first years. I'm not going to miss him, though it will make the Democrats' task of keeping the Senate slightly harder. You're right, because when he leaves, 99% chance that the person taking over will be a Republican. It's a very red state. I just want to get rid of the guy because the guy is only about his own self-enrichment, his own image. You know, every time the attention is away from him, he tries to grab it again. He tried to do it with the No Labels Party. And now by retiring and maybe doing a third party, it's all about, we got to focus on Joe Manchin. I'll say this is about Joe Manchin. He's inconsequential. He's a waste of flesh and a waste of oxygen. The faster we can get that fucker out and put him on Fox News or something, the better. The emailer says, when are we going to stop treating Dirty Diaper Donnie as if he is above everyone else? The head of the FEC, Weintraub, has blocked criminal investigations into Dirty Diaper's campaign finances. Apparently, there are 26 instances of violations that Weintraub is refusing to authorize criminal investigations into. Excuse me. I don't care that Weintraub is a Democrat. I don't care that there's concern about appearing political. I don't care that they worry about what Trump fucks might do. Dirty Diaper Donnie isn't above the law. 26 instances of violations of campaign finance laws. That's at least 26 possible more felonies. I know Donnie is toast. Eventually he'll be broken in jail, but Jesus Christ, we need to stop treating him like he's a fucking special person. It's not just him. It's politicians and wealthy elites that have a different tier of justice. The Republicans are correct about a two-tier justice system, but it's not the way they suggest it. It's not Democrats getting better treatment. It's the fucking Republicans and the wealthy. All right. He goes on to say Republicans in Ohio can get fucked as are treating to overturn the newest amendment to their Constitution. They're saying it is their God-given right to enact whatever abortion restrictions they want, no matter what the Constitution says. Unfortunately, your law is dictated by your Constitution, so you can say that, but it's not true. You know, people ask me worried about that. Do I think it's going to happen where they'll just ignore it? Well, you remember Alabama tried to ignore the restructuring of their districts and the gerrymandering and stuff. The Supreme Court said, no, you got to do it this way. And they said, no, we're going to do it our way. It didn't work out. They were forced to do it the right way. I don't think anything's going to happen here. They're just making noise so that they can appear as though to be warriors to keep the evangelicals in their pocket. I don't know that there's anything they can really do about this. It was elected, it was voted on in a fair and honest election. If you allow this to happen, then you basically said, in this state, democracy is no more. Will the Ohioans be willing to do that? I don't think so. He goes on to say, obviously, all of this is unconstitutional. The court should prevent the Republicans from doing this. We need to keep this message going up to the 2024 election. The people spoke and overwhelmingly wanted to protect abortion access in Ohio. However, this isn't just about abortion. The simple fact is that the Republicans don't care what people want. They could just as easily do this with any other issue. And that's absolutely right. Thanks, Eric. You're absolutely right. I think what the Democrats need to do is take hold of a situation like this. And coming up to this election, point out, put it in the narrative. Republican legislature in Ohio refuses to recognize your vote, refuses to recognize a fair and honest election. The state of Ohio and the people in it spoke, and the Republicans say, "Now we don't care what you think. We're going to shove this down your throat." They need to hype this up in Ohio and any other state where this is happening. And this will do one thing. When they try to do these things, you're going to get a lot of independents, moderates, and such saying that might normally side with the Republicans when they realize that what they're doing is unconstitutional and abhorrent. They're not going to get those votes. I think a lot of Republicans are going to end up losing their jobs, and that will add to the blue wave I've been talking about with regards to 2024. All right, let's talk about dumb shits. Who could I be speaking of? Well, Dirty Diaper Donnie Dipshit. And Donnie's got some ideas of some things he would do when he becomes president. How about a mass deportation operation, a new Muslim ban, tariffs on all imported goods, and freedom cities built on federal land? Now, much of the 2024 presidential campaign has been dominated by the myriad investigations into Donald Trump and the subsequent charges against him. But with less than a year until the election, Trump is dominating the race for the Republican nomination, as we know. Excuse me. Now, his ideas and even the issues he focuses on most are crazy, different, of course, from Joe Biden's proposals. Now, if implemented, Trump's plans would represent a dramatic government overhaul, arguably more consequential than that of his first term. His presidency, especially the early days, was marked by chaos, infighting, and a wave of hastily written executive orders. What they're basically saying is, if you thought it was bad when Donald Trump was in office the first time around, it's going to get ugly, because Donald Trump is a vengeful motherfucker. All these people that are taking him to task now and filing charges, if he were ever to get in a position as president again, he would go after all those people. And frankly, as president, he might have some sway in being able to do that. Now, that sounds scary, but the fact of the matter is, I know he's not going to be president again. There is just no fucking way that's going to happen. So we don't have to worry about it. But the media will come out and, oh, you better be fearful. Donnie gets in, it's going to be a vicious, murderous, dictatorial regime. Well, if he got there, yeah, maybe that's true. But there's no way to get there. There's no path for Donald Trump to be president. He is popular amongst the Republican Party, but as a country overall, he's not too popular. And he's got a problem, too. We now know that 70% of this country support Roe v. Wade. We've got all kinds of videos of him acting cocky about how he overturned Roe v. Wade. You play those videos on enough places and commercials and shit, people will get the message. And frankly, I've told you before, just the abortion issue is enough for the Republicans to get destroyed in 2024. Just that. But we've got all these other things that people are going to be concerned about. Now, it says Trump would try to strip tens of thousands of career employees of their civil service protections. That way they could be fired as he seeks to obliterate the deep state. I'd like to meet one person who's actually in the deep state. I've never seen that. Now, he would try to accomplish that by reissuing a 2020 executive order as Schedule F that would allow him to reclassify masses of employees. And then, of course, we've got the Project 2025. Everybody's so worried about this, but it doesn't work unless the Republicans are in control. And as far as I'm concerned, that's not going to happen in 2024. And then somebody might say, what about 2028 or 2032? Well, here's the deal. Once they're out of power in 2024, they're going to have to rethink everything. And that Project 2025, they'll realize is a loser, and all the other policies they have are losers, and they're going to change. So if somehow the Republicans do end up in power in the future, they aren't going to be in the iteration of what we see right now. They're going to understand that they've got to change a lot of things. They're going to have to smooth some things over. They're going to have to be better if anybody is to consider them as a serious party. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if there's any way back for them. They've got a lot of problems going into 2024. A lot is going to be exposed. A lot of Republicans are going to be indicted. So how do you come back from that? Not to mention them accomplishing nothing when they're in power in the House in these 2 years. There is nothing going on right now that is a plus for Republicans. There's nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. So I think that after this 2024 election, it's going to be a long time before Republicans have power in the House or the Senate or in government generally. Now, we've had some interesting conversations about this upcoming trial in Washington, D.C. Judge Tanya Chutkan and Jack Smith and the January 6th election interference thing. I know some media outlets have gone to the judge and asked that this trial be televised. It's uncommon for a federal trial to be televised. Not saying it's not possible. And if there was a time when it would be appropriate, it would be this particular time. But I think the chances of it are slim. Now, special counsel Jack Smith accused former President Trump's legal team of misleading him in a ruse to have cameras broadcast his election subversion trial. Now, in a filing on Sunday, Smith called out Trump after he reversed course on whether cameras should be in the courtroom. But just days earlier, Trump had told Smith that he did not oppose the government's motion against courtroom cameras. Now, Smith seemed surprised that Trump had changed his tune. The defendant's response did not engage with the relevant federal rule of criminal procedure or cite any applicable case law. Instead, made false and incendiary claims about the administration of his criminal case, United States versus Trump. The special counsel asked the court for permission to file a pre-prepared 4-page motion responding to Trump's false and incendiary claims and appeal for cameras. So that's what's going on. Donald Trump says, yeah, let's have cameras, even though he had told them before that he didn't want cameras. So why is he doing that? Well, Donald Trump is a contrary motherfucker. You know that. I know that. The moment he knew that Jack Smith was against it, he had to go the opposite way. Now, Donald Trump does not want cameras in the trial. That would be devastating to him, and he knows it. But what he also knows is, with Jack Smith against it, and the judge may be against it, that there's never going to be cameras in that trial. So he says, yeah, I'm for cameras, so that when the cameras aren't in there, he's got something to complain about. I wanted the cameras. They wouldn't let me have the cameras. He wants something to whine about. He wants something to appeal. That's what he's doing here. I don't think we're going to see cameras in the federal court. But if we do, Donald Trump will bitch about that. Oh, I don't want cameras now. Donald Trump needs to be careful of what he asks for, because he just might fucking get it. I mean, this trial is a little different trial than most. We have so many people that are misinformed about what's going on. As I said, this would be a good situation to have the trial on television. That way there would be no questions, no misconstruing, no diverting, no distracting, no delaying, none of that. Everybody would see exactly what happens. And then it's just a matter of how stupid you are and if you can grasp what you're watching. So Donald Trump says he wants the cameras, but in his heart of hearts, he does not want the cameras. But if they don't get the cameras, you can bet that he'll bitch about it and try to use it for an appeal. But if they do get the cameras, then he'll switch horses in the river again and say he's against him. That's just dipshit Donnie Trump. Now, last week, Tim Miller, the gay bulwark writer, who was communications director for Jeb Bush's campaign in 2016, but left the GOP, tweeted out that Matt Gaetz appeared to be outing the GOP chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Missouri Congressman Jason Smith. You can watch the clip from Gaetz's podcast. Gaetz is extremely peeved that Smith attacked him for triggering the removal of Kevin McCarthy as House Speaker. Gaetz played a clip of Smith saying, "Let me just tell you, if Matt Gaetz' lips are moving, it's only lies that are coming out of it," and calling Gaetz a foolish liar. Now, not unlike Donald Trump, Gaetz is kind of vengeful. He responded by saying Smith is the one who is living a lie and that every Republican in Congress knows it. Jason says, "If my lips are moving, I'm lying." Well, you know what? If Jason is breathing, he's living a lie. There might not be another member of Congress who lives a lie every day more than Jason Smith. And Jason Smith knows exactly what I'm talking about. And by the way, so does almost every member of the House Republican caucus. Oh, sounds like a little blackmail to me. So there's a good deal of projection in Jason Smith calling me a liar when it's Jason Smith who literally has to live a lie. And I honestly pity him for that because, it wouldn't be something that I wouldn't live that way. I'll just put it that way. So, Jason, I would check yourself before you come at me with any accusations of being dishonest about what I say when you're dishonest about how you live. So, what do we know about Mr. Smith? Well, he's voted anti-LGBTQ for years, in office since 2013, with a score of 0 from the Human Rights Campaign. He condemned the Supreme Court's marriage equality decision in 2015, saying he's never wavered in my commitment to the biblical definition of marriage. Like most Republicans in the House, Smith voted against the Respect for Marriage last year, which protects the same-sex marriage, and voted for the spending bills this year, added dozens of anti-LGBTQ provisions. But unlike most Republicans in the House, Smith is 44 and single. Again, big deal for the Republicans. Why aren't they pressing him like they're pressing Tim Scott? And one of his closest friends in Congress for years, someone he traveled with on lavish trips, was none other than Illinois Congressman Aaron Schock, the closeted gay House member who resigned in 2015 amid a scandal that focused on his outrageous misuse of government funds, and eventually was indicted in 2016 for fraud and theft of government funds, among other things. Schock finally came out of the closet announcing, "I'm gay," in 2020. The best part of this is that the Republicans are going after themselves. They're fighting amongst themselves. And as we get closer to trying to come up with some plan to get a continuing resolution or some finalized deal with this budget, the infighting's going to get worse. It's inevitable. No matter which way it goes, there's going to be a lot of fighting. And this is all good news for the Democrats. The Republicans are too busy fucking with themselves to even worry about the Democrats. Now, we're going to wind things down here, but we got a big day today. Today, the lawsuit, Letitia James lawsuit against Donald Trump, his kids, and his company resume today. The big difference for today is that the prosecution has rested its case, and now it's the defense's turn. The defense has to defend itself in this case, which is ironic since they've already lost the case. They're not really defending in hopes of getting a not liable decision. That's already been decided. What they really have to do is try to minimize what Donald Trump's disgorgement is going to be. And that's meaning taking how much money it's going to cost him. I don't know if they even grasp that because they act like they're trying to win a case that's already been lost. But nonetheless, they're starting their defense today. And they're leading off with Donald Trump Jr. He'll be back on the stand in the Manhattan court case. Now, he didn't offer much help when the prosecution called him. It might be a little easier with the defense questioning him. There'll be a lot of softballs and that sort of thing. But what he has to remember, there is cross-examination. The prosecution will also get a chance to question him and rebut what he may have said while the defense was questioning him. Probably not going to be a good day for Donald Trump Jr., but it's going to be interesting to see who else they bring to the table or to the witness stand. There's really nobody that can help them get loose from this lawsuit because, as I say, the lawsuit has already been decided as far as guilt. Now it's just a matter of how much. Now, I'd seen at one point that the defense said they had 127 witnesses. Somehow, I don't think we'll see 127 witnesses. This is going to go badly for them. Now that they're running the show and they have a propensity to do some goofy shit, I think the judge is going to be all over their asses. And they're going to be whining and crying and upset and all that sort of shit. But that starts today, and that should be interesting. Once the defense is done, then the judge will make a decision as to how much Donnie's going to have to pay. Letitia James is asking for $250 million, which may crush Donald Trump. It's likely it'll go higher than that. It's a matter of what the judge feels like the amount of the ill-gotten gains. All of the ill-gotten gains will have to be paid back or clawed back or something. So it'll be very interesting. Now, appearing on MSNBC, former prosecutor Barbara McQuade was asked what Donald Trump's oldest son will have to offer as he appears before Judge Engoron on Monday, today. And the ex-U.S. attorney claimed it would be close to worthless because of his testimony last week when he was grilled by the prosecution. Well, it's very interesting, she told MSNBC. One is because this is now the direct testimony that can provide the narrative they want to tell. They're not simply responding and reacting to questions by the Attorney General. This is going to be on the offensive and providing the narrative. But I think it's going to be very difficult for Don Jr. To really have a lot of credibility here, she quickly added. His whole strategy when testified previously was to distance himself from knowledge of these things, that it was all about the accountants. I don't really pay much attention to this. Sure, maybe I signed off on these things, but remember, he gave that press conference at the end of his testimony where he said, I relied on accountants to do, wait for it, accounting. She continued. It's going to be difficult for him, I think, to now say anything with any authority other than to repeat what he's already said. Might even be perjury. So Donnie kind of painted himself in a corner in this situation. You know, he's not a good witness at any rate. And it'll be interesting to see what other witnesses they bring. They said 127 witnesses. I can guarantee it won't be that many. I think at some point they'll get frustrated and they'll just wrap it up. At some point, they've got to pay the piper. They're going to lose this case. They've already lost this case. But now it's a matter if they're going to destroy Donald Trump financially completely. And I think there's no question they are, because Donald Trump, even at $250 million, that may crush him, because we know he's not as wealthy as he claims to be. But we'll see. And it'll be interesting watching this trial and see what happens at the breaks. See if Donnie Trump himself shows up this time. He left his kids hanging last time. I'm guessing he probably won't show up because it just gets him in trouble every time he does. So I don't know. We'll see. But I can't wait for this trial to be over. He's already been found liable of pervasive and massive fraud. Now it's a matter of whether he's going to be destroyed financially. And I can't imagine how it could go any other way. He's going to get destroyed. And I think that'll play a big part in what his future holds, because his wealth and his power is his identity, at least in his mind. And when that identity is effectively gone, it's going to crush this weak, narcissistic mind like he's never experienced before. And it's going to be interesting to see how he reacts. You can trust that it'll be emotional and reactionary, and it won't work well for him. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Thank you very much for listening, taking the time out of your day to listen. With any luck, my voice will get a little better tomorrow, and we'll get out of this this situation. So, again, I hope you have a great day. And of course, we will talk to you again tomorrow.